everyone asked for this video to be made. People were practically on their knees begging me to make this video, begging me for my picks, and I was kind of like, all right, I mean, I guess I could do it if you guys really want it that bad. So you know what, because so many people were asking, I'm going to be doing my picks for UFC 318, Holloway versus Poirier 3. My name is Fight Ben Fight. Let's get into it. And we're going to be starting with the first fight of the night, Carly Giudice versus Nicole Cagliari. Listen, let me just say this one thing, okay? I understand the joke about women's MMA. You know, when a women's MMA fight comes up, it's the bathroom break. We're not going to watch it. I'm not even giving my pick. Guys, listen to me when I say this. Nicole Cagliari versus Carly Giudice is going to be a barn burner. This is going to be a genuine WMMA scrap, okay? I got Carly Giudice by unanimous decision. Let's get into it. First things first, listen. Let's break down Carly Giudice. Carly Giudice has great pace, and she can make it a dogfight. Both of these fighters can make it a dogfight. She has a great kick game. She has a good low kick, a good spinning back kick, and she works to the body very well. I think one of her best weapons, though, is the jab that she can pop from range. She's obviously going to be the taller fighter. She's 5'7". Nicole Cagliari is 5'3". She was popping this jab very well against Kate, who's just as tall as her. So with the fighter Nicole Cagliari, who's 4 inches shorter, I think it's going to be even better. And on top of all this, she has good clinch work. And I think this clinch work is going to pay dividends to her win because Nicole Cagliari, let's see if I can even get that right. Nicole Cagliari has a brawler style, and she looks to take down. She looks to get into that pocket to go for the takedown. And I think a lot of clinch exchanges are going to happen during this fight that Carly Giudice is going to get the better of. And also, Carly Giudice, she's 4-2, but the 2 losses that she has were very, very close. She very well could have won both of those fights. And I think a fight to look at when we're making our picks for here is her fight against Gabrielle Fernandez. Giudice was stuffing the takedown very well. She even had takedowns of her own, and she won on Fernandez. She debatably won. Fernandez looked very, very slow in that third round. She looked gassed. And this was a fight where Fernandez was trying to mix in the striking and takedowns and struggled a bit because Carly Giudice was putting up the pace. I think they both had over 300 significant strikes. So that's why I am so confident that this fight's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be a great to open up. And I think Carly Giudice is going to has the chance at the very least to be a genuine prospect in the women's flyweight division. So, if you care about women's MMA, if you care about the prospects, I really want to look at Carly Giudice. All right, let's move on to Bruno Ferreira versus Jackson McVeigh. Listen, Bruno Ferreira is very undersized for middleweight. He's 5'10". That being said, he's very fast and he has great power. He had a competitive fight with Abus Magomedov. Abus is number 15 in the middleweight rankings. That means if Bruno Ferreira had beaten Abus, it was a close fight before he got submitted, he could be fighting in the top 15. He could be fighting top 15 level opponents. And listen, when I look at Jackson McVeigh, he has the clear height advantage, 6 inches taller, he's 6'4", and he's fought in light heavyweight before. He has good kicks and a good clinch game. I cannot say that for the life of me. He's 6-0, but when I look at that 6-0 record and I look at who he's fought, I feel like he's only fought Street Beefs levels opponents. His last fight was against Mateo Garner, who was actually one of his only legit athletes that he fought. And even then, Garner had no fighting spirit. McVeigh got him in the clinch and literally brought him down with knees. He pretty much bone-nickeled Mateo Garner. So, in my opinion, it kind of feels like a padded record. The people he is beating aren't necessarily MMA level, UFC level fighters. And when you go from that to making your debut against Bruno Ferreira, especially after the competition you have fought, it doesn't look too good for you. So, I don't know if maybe it's the overconfidence that he's feeling after winning, or maybe he's just a dog and he's going to take whatever fight. Respect to him if it is that second reason, but I honestly have Bruno Ferreira with a knockout in round 1. I think Bruno Ferreira is just going to put on that pace and bite down his mouthpiece, unlike the opponents that Jackson McVeigh has fought. So, that being said, I got Bruno Ferreira KO round 1. We move on to Ryan Spann versus Lucas Brzeski. And listen, let me say one thing about Ryan Spann versus Lucas Brzeski, okay? Because when you look at this is just another low-level heavyweight fight. And at first, because it was such a low-level heavyweight fight, and in these low-level heavyweight fights, anyone has a chance, I was going to go with Lucas Brzeski. Because Lucas Brzeski is the underdog in this fight. And when there's a low-level heavyweight fight and both of them have a chance, in my head, I was like, you know what? You might as well go with the underdog because they both have a puncher's chance. But then I look at Lucas Brzeski, I look back on it, and I don't even think Lucas Brzeski even has a puncher's chance. He has no sting behind his shots. And I think that's part of the reason why he keeps getting sparked in heavyweight. I think he's 1-5 in heavyweight. And the one win he had was like a split controversial decision against a slow Walter Walker. The Walter Walker now that fought Lucas Brzeski are very, very different fighters right now. And then we look at Ryan Spann, where he just got knocked out by Waldo Cortez Acosta. But in that fight, Waldo Cortez Acosta threw a naked kick, and Spann made him pay for it with a straight right hand. So I think Ryan Spann has a speed advantage. He has the ability to, at the very least, catch Lucas Brzeski. And yeah, he has the power and speed advantage. And listen, sometimes when Lucas Brzeski is throwing these slow and light hooks with no sting on him, he's leaving his chin wide open. And I honestly just think Spann is going to catch him with the right hand. And I think it's going to be very similar to the Kane Nishikwu fight. I think Lucas is just going to open up, try to get a combination, leave that chin wide open, and he's going to get knocked out. So I got another round 1 KO by Ryan Spann. Yeah, so that if you watch my TikTok lives, I was originally saying Lucas Brzeski, but I got to go with Ryan Spann. I have no faith in Lucas Brzeski. We move on to Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. Bros, people are sleeping on Jimmy Crute. People have given up on Jimmy Crute. I understand that he's a very, very big favorite. That being said, people are still sleeping on Jimmy Crute. I understand that he hasn't won a fight in 4 years, okay? And it's easy to look at his record and say that Crute sucks. But he has had some very competitive fights in this 4-year span with some very decent fighters. He's fought Jamal Hill. And say what you want about Jamal Hill, he was a champion. He was a champion. Alonzo Menefield, say what you want about Alonzo Menefield, but he just beat a decent prospect in Omar Sy. People thought Omar Sy was actually going to be on the come up, and Alonzo Menefield beat him. And then on top of that, he 10-8'd Rodolfo Bellato in the first round. And listen, I know everyone hates Bellato now after what he did to Paul Craig, but at the time, that was a very competitive fight, and people were seriously looking at Bellato as another prospect. So Jimmy Crute is still having these competitive fights, and even though he's been out winning, he's still having these competitive fights with very high-level opponents. Not high level, but good, decent level. And especially in the first, I think he's very good at taking the fight in the ground. He has a bad gas tank, but I still think he can stay competitive on the feet. We've seen multiple times where he's tired, versus in like the Bellato fight. He was very tired, but despite being tired, he still put on a pace. He still, some strikes were still going through. So I think Jimmy Crute is going to be able to dog this one out. And we got Marcin Prachnio, who has decent striking from range. He has a slick question mark kick in the pocket. We saw that against Modestas Pakalkis. But he has really, really bad takedown defense. It's at 50%. And I just think Jimmy Crute's going to outmuscle him. Jimmy Crute has decent takedown game. As you can see right now, even on the tail of the tape, he has a 3.86 takedown average. And then we got someone with a 50% takedown defense. It just doesn't mix well for Marcin Prachnio. I can very, very easily say this ends in a finish just because I think Jimmy Crute can take him down easily. That being said, we all know Jimmy Crute's gas tank is bad. So even though I think Jimmy Crute's going to comfortably win this, I think his gas tank is going to prevent him from finishing the fight. So I got Jimmy Crute by unanimous decision. I know people got him by sub. I know people got Marcin Prachnio. I got Jimmy Crute by unanimous decision. So let's go ahead and move on to Adam Fugit versus Islam Dulatov. And there's something to talk about Islam Dulatov because this guy was a successful Versace model. This guy was a professional Versace model before becoming an MMA fighter. And listen, you gotta feel for Adam Fugit, man, because look, he's getting tough opponent after tough opponent. Imagine making your debut and you have to fight Michael Morales, world beater Michael Morales. All right, you get a win on your belt, and then boom, you get Mike Mallet, and then you get another win on your belt, and then you get Islam Dulatov, bro. Someone who is a Versace model, someone who's 11-1, all of his wins by finish. And it's like, dang, dude, like, on top of getting a tough opponent, you're going to get mogged, too. Like, he's just going to mog you, like, while you're fighting at the same time. So it's just, like, one extra thing that Adam Fugit, like, just has to worry about, and it just sucks. Islam Dulatov, let's just talk about this guy, dude, because he has an insane height and reach advantage for welterweight. He's 6'3", and has 75-inch advantage. He has very long arms. That's a huge advantage for just a welterweight fighter overall. And he has the ability to overwhelm. That being said, in the Contender Series, despite overwhelming, he was throwing these hooks that didn't have a lot of sting on him. That being said, his best weapons are his straights. When he uses his reach to his advantage and discourages his opponent from entering, he has power in his hands. And only really while he's utilizing those straights is when you really see the power on full display. Adam Fugit at the same time, he may look to wrestle, and he's survived against Michael Morales, all right? He survived till the third round with Michael Morales. He survived till the second round with Mike Mallet, where in both those things, people were expecting him to get destroyed. And for that reason, people got Islam Dulatov by unanimous decision because they think Adam Fugit's going to survive. And I think one of the main reasons why Adam survives is because he clinches up and kind of goes for a takedown to save himself, and that buys him time. But I think with Islam Dulatov, with the power in his hands, and just the reach advantage, I think he's going to be able to catch Adam Fugitt, and Adam Fugitt is not going to be able to survive. And yeah, I just really don't know what Adam Fugitt did to deserve this. You know, getting 3 tough opponents in his last 5 fights, and then on top of it, the opponent's just going to mug him. But yeah, like I said, like Islam's reach really discourages people from entering, and I think that's just going to be even worse for Adam Fugitt, who enters the pocket and tries to go for a takedown in order to save himself. So it's just a really bad stylistic matchup for Adam Fugitt, in my opinion. And Islam Dulatov can be a genuine prospect in the welterweight division. I already know we have a ton of good contenders in welterweight, and we're getting a ton of good welterweight prospects as well. Jacoby Smith, Islam Dulatov. I'm throwing in Jake Matthews in there too. So I'm very excited to see what Islam Dulatov does. I got Islam Dulatov getting the knockout in the second round. So let's move on to another prospect. This card is full of prospects, guys, and I'm very excited to just talk about all of them. And the next prospect we got to talk about is Ateba Guatier, who's a -600 favorite. And I have to bring up Islam Dulatov again because he's a -700. These prospects are being highly inflated on the odds to win. That being said, I still got Ateba Guatier getting a knockout, and he's going against Robert Valentin. Ateba Guatier is 23 years old, which is insane. This is another young prospect, kind of like Joshua Van. Joshua Van's not a prospect anymore. He's a legit contender, #1 contender as a matter of fact, but he has legitimate kickboxing, and sometimes his inexperience can show. I remember when he fought Naito in the Contender Series, and Naito was shooting. He was constantly looking for his corner for help. And despite having this skill and despite having this raw talent, you can still see in technicality-wise, like he's still very green. You know, he still needs help from his coaches. The experience isn't under his belt yet. That being said, he has insane reaction time. He has crazy counter potential. He has speed in his hands. I remember Naito going for a shot, and Ateba Guatier countered with the fastest uppercut I have ever seen. So he may be technically, IQ-wise, he may be very, very new, but he is very talented. He has a ton of skill. People are considering him to be a lock. I think he's going to be a lock as well. And then let's look at Robert Valentin. He's 0-2 in the UFC. But the only 2 people that he has fought in the UFC have been very, very wrestle heavy. And Ateba Guatier is not wrestle heavy at all. He prefers to stand up. So this is kind of a new stylistic matchup for Robert Valentin. He has the ability to make this a wild fight. He has the ability to swing wild. I think Ateba Guatier is the same thing. So this may be a really, really good fight, but I think Ateba Guatier is going to end up catching him. That's why I have him at KO. And we're not too sure how good the chin of Robert Valentin is, just because he's been facing 2 wrestlers in the UFC so far. And he has a well-rounded game. This fight might end up closer than what the odd makers are letting on, putting Guatier at -600. But regardless, I have Ateba Guatier getting the knockout. I think he's a lock for this card. And yeah, that's 2 prospects already in Ateba Guatier and Islam Dulatov. And we have one more to talk about. So we're gonna move up to Francisco Prado versus Nikolai Veretennikov. People have Nikolai Veretennikov winning this fight, and I genuinely don't know why. I think maybe that, so many of these favorites look like they can legitimately win. Like sometimes you see these 2 fights and you're like, okay, I can go with the underdog. With this card, I feel like a lot of the favorites are the favorites for a reason. I don't know if that makes sense, but they're the favorites, and you could just totally see them winning. You don't really see a way for the underdog to win. So I think for that reason, when you see this fight, you're like, okay, like I might as well pick an underdog. Let me pick Veretennikov. Guys, Veretennikov is not that good. He overextends a ton, and sometimes his feet leave the ground when he swings. Like he could be fast at times, but when he overextends, it's like it leaves so much for the other fighter to get knocked to catch him. And we look at Francisco Prado, another young guy, 23 years old, and we were talking about Islam Dulatov having a size and reach advantage for welterweight. This Francisco Prado has a size and reach disadvantage. He's 5'10", he has a reach of 69 inches. But he has good striking, and I believe that he has the potential to improve a ton. He's still very young. And the thing about Francisco Prado is that he finds a way to enter the pocket by throwing kicks, and he pressures with hooks. And Francisco Prado recently fought Daniel Zellhuber, who we're going to get into later in this card. And it was a great fight to watch when making my pick because Zellhuber is also 6'1", and we got to see how Francisco Prado would deal with it. He has grit on top of everything. He had the strongest in the first round. He may have slowed down as the fight went on. But sure, Zellhuber's styles, Zellhuber found his style, and he styled on Prado once he found his range with the jab. But Veretennikov won't style on anybody. I think Prado will get Veretennikov against the cage, and that's where he's going to work best. That being said, I see Veretennikov surviving until the fight ends, but I just think Prado's going to get him in a lot of these close-range exchanges, and I don't think Veretennikov has the skill to be able to keep up with Prado. I think Prado's going to beat him on the speed, beat him on the entrances, and yeah, I genuinely think Prado's going to win. I don't really see why people got Veretennikov winning. I'm pretty confident in the Prado pick. And I think Prado got us in the bag. I know he's been beaten by Jake Matthews and Daniel Zellhuber, but those are genuinely good boxers, good strikers, and I don't really see that in Veretennikov. So I got Francisco Prado, despite the disadvantages that he had with the height and reach. But yeah, let's move on. And let's move on to a fight that I feel like should have been on the main event just because of the bad blood they had. They weren't even on the press conference, and they know that they have bad blood. And we're talking about Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. And this fight has the potential to be competitive. Not necessarily a good fight, but I think it'll still be competitive. I feel personally, I think Brendan Allen has the technical edge everywhere. However, the significant flaw with both of these fighters is that they have a very low fight IQ. Brendan Allen could be winning a fight, and then he will jump a weak guillotine and then end up on bottom position and then lose the fight for himself. And then Marvin Vettori, I mean, he has the low IQ, but I feel like his chin saves him a lot in these fights. And for that reason, I think anyone could take this fight. That being said, I think Marvin Vettori significantly slows down as the fight goes on. And I just have Brendan Allen outpointing him. Allen has great takedowns, and I think he's going to find a way to get Vettori down and eventually tire him. I think Marvin Vettori is going to tire out quicker than Brendan Allen. And like I said, Marvin Vettori significantly slows down. And I think that's going to open up opportunities for Brendan Allen to just outpoint him. So this is a bad blood fight. I'm excited for this fight to see at the very least because we know these guys do not like each other. They fought in a casino recently. I think it was earlier this year. But yeah, I got Brendan Allen outpointing him. I got Brendan Allen by unanimous decision. And let's go on to the prospect of the card who may not even be a prospect anymore. This guy is on the cusp of being a legit contender, and that's Vinicius Oliviera, and he's fighting Kyler Phillips. All right. So let's talk about Kyler Phillips first. Look, he has spinning moves. He has spinny kicks, spinny elbows, and he looks to get the takedown. He's very aggressive when he's trying to get it. He's coming off a loss against Rob Font, and I think that there's one thing that we can learn from the loss with Rob Font, not using MMA math, just kind of seeing the mentality of Kyler Phillips is I kind of feel like Kyler Phillips has an unwillingness to get grimy if the game plan isn't working. And we saw that with Rob Font. Once Rob Font kind of figured out Phillips, his aggressive style, his spinny style, it was his fight to win. And Kyler Phillips wasn't really adapting to Rob Font adapting to him. It was kind of like once the game plan wasn't working, he was going to stick to it, and it kind of almost, he kind of just gave Rob Font the fight. Vinicius Oliviera, on the other hand, is that if it needs to be a dogfight, he will make it a dogfight. It doesn't necessarily have to be a clean fight for him to get the win. And yeah, like I said, I think this guy is genuinely the prospect of the card. And he's like on the cusp of being a legit contender. He has crazy power for bantamweight, and he gets better as the fight goes on. And he stays on the front foot the entire time. That's what I love about these Brazilian fighters, because I see it a lot in these Brazilian Muay Thai fighters, is that they love to stay on the front foot the entire time. I mean, look at Charles Oliveira. Obviously, he paid for it with Ilia Topuria, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But let's talk about it. I mean, look, in his fight against Bernardo Sopai, he took Oliveira down in the first round and was controlling that round, and Oliveira still found a way to get on top position, and then from then on kind of pushed the pace the rest of the fight, wore on Sopai, and eventually got the flying knee knockout in the last minute of the third round. And look, when I look at this fight, obviously I just used the example of his fight with Sopai just to kind of show that Oliveira will find the win, even if it's grimy, even if it's a dogfight. But stylistically, I think watching the fight between Oliveira and Said Nurmagomedov, there we go, is another great fight, especially in predicting this, because Said is also another speedy, spinny striker, and he had a good round against Vinicius Oliveira. Vinicius Oliveira even had a broken rib during this fight, and this is just another example of Oliveira pushing the pace and breaking his opponent, eventually got the better of wrestling exchanges, and honestly, this is how I see the fight going. I see Kyler Phillips having a very strong round one. I think that's going to be his strongest round, and it may be close. He may even take that round. But as the fight goes on, I just think Oliveira is going to stay on the front foot, push the pace, and just wear on him, just like he's done with every other opponent. And yeah, like I said, Kyler Phillips has an unwillingness to get grimy, and Vinicius Oliveira can make this fight grimy, and I think he will. And I think it would either be a very comfortable decision for Oliveira or a late KO. I'm leaning late KO. I got Oliveira knocking out Kyler Phillips in round 3. Let's talk about the stars of the press conference, Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber. All right, when I was talking about Francisco Prado, and while I was picking him, I brought up his fight with Daniel Zellhuber, and I think that fight is another good fight to pick when making your predictions about his fight with Michael Johnson, because Zellhuber's performance against Prado is why I feel so confident that he's going to knock out Michael Johnson in round 2. Prado gave Zellhuber some trouble at first. Johnson is another 5'10 fighter who has wild boxing, and just like Prado. And Prado gave Zellhuber some trouble at first, but once Zellhuber found his range with the jab, he started styling on him. He started looking really, really good, started landing his punches, started landing long combinations, and it was once he found that range. And I see this happening very similarly to that fight, because I think he's going to find his range even sooner. I think he's learned a lot from that fight. He's only 26, so these fights that he's starting off with, he's really going to learn from. And yeah, I just think he's learned from that fight, and I think he's going to find his range against Michael Johnson sooner. Johnson is not as speedy as Prado anymore, and stylistically, I just think this is a good fight for Zellhuber. So when you're watching this fight, I think you really got to watch for Zellhuber to pop that jab, and then see what he does from there once he locates that range. So I got another knockout in this card, dude. I got this card being filled with knockouts, and I got Daniel Zellhuber knocking out Michael Johnson in the second round. And talking about knockouts, guys, everyone has this next fight to be decision. But I got Dan Ige knocking out Patricio Pitbull, and I need you guys to walk with me here. I need you guys to listen to me. I need you guys to give me a chance, okay? Dan Ige has very slick boxing. He loads up his right hand, that being said, and I feel like sometimes that can be predictable, especially with someone with Patricio Pitbull who's been in this game for a long time. But he does a very, very good job at throwing it when his opponents enter. That's how he TKO'd Sean Woodson. However you feel about how that was a stoppage, he still caught Sean Woodson really bad. And I think the striking advantage goes to Dan Ige. Patricio Pitbull, I feel like, he's 38, and I just think he joined the UFC too late. I just feel like he's on his way out. He's out of his prime. And when I said that Dan Ige can catch people with the right hand when they're entering, that's exactly how he got dropped by Yair Rodriguez in the third. And it was from a right hand when Pitbull was entering. And that being said, Yair Rodriguez, he's 5'11", significantly taller than Pitbull. But I think the move that he used to get Patricio Pitbull on the ground is a move that Dan Ige utilizes, despite the reach advantage. And the MMA vibes are just very strong with me saying Dan Ige gets the KO. I think most people have Dan Ige by decision, like I said. And I'm just going to take it a step further. The vibes are telling me to take it a step forward. I can feel it in the air. And yeah, I just simply caught a vibe on the Dan Ige KO. And if it hits, that just further legitimizes my MMA vibe catching abilities. So that being said, if Patricio Pitbull invests in takedowns, we have seen fighters smudge Dan Ige in the past. It could be a cause for worry, but I honestly don't see it happening. I don't think his entries are going to be fast enough to catch Ige. And yeah, I got Dan Ige with a KO in round 3. All right, we move on to Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. And let me say one thing, guys. It is Kevin Holland's season. I don't think he's going to make a run to the title, but I think he will make a top 10 run. I think after Daniel Rodriguez, he's going to beat someone else, enter that top 10. Obviously, I don't think he's good enough to win the title and even fight a lot of these guys, but I still think he has the ability to make it into the top 10. I can feel it in the air, and I think Daniel Rodriguez, as much as I like Daniel Rodriguez, I think he's a layup for that run. I think Kevin Holland will beat this guy pretty comfortably, and he's coming off a great performance against Vicente Luque, who just could not take him down. Obviously, Daniel Rodriguez is not going to be taking anyone down, but he locked in that Anaconda sub for the round 1 sub, and Kevin Holland just looks great. He looks motivated to move up. It's not just a paycheck and I'll fight whoever, I'll fight the hardest guy on the roster. It's genuinely like, all right, I want to move up. I want to fight people that are going to help me move up. And but that being said, people have Kevin Holland with an early finish. I think there's going to be a late fight. I think this either goes to distance, maybe it's something at the end happening, but I got Kevin Holland by decision. I think Daniel Rodriguez, despite me saying that Kevin Holland is going to win this comfortably, Daniel Rodriguez is a genuine survivor, all right? He can hang in there even when losing. He doesn't get finished easily. The only 2 times he's been finished is a KO by Ian Gary, who's a top striker, and he got submitted by Neil Magny, and that's it. I'm not going to go too deep into Neil Magny because, I don't know. He's still solid, though, And obviously, if Neil Magny can submit Daniel Rodriguez, Kevin Holland can as well. But I just think this fight is going to stay on the feet for the most part. I got Daniel Rodriguez hanging in there for a decision. And I also have this fight on my parlay to go over 2.5 rounds. So it is going to be a sweat. The plus money on that looks so nice. And yeah, dude, look, Kevin Holland is a minus 650 favorite, and people look at that 650 favorite and they think early decision, and they don't think early finish, and they don't think early decision, easy decision. So I got Kevin Holland winning an easy decision, and moving up those rankings. Let's see who he can fight next. Maybe after he fights Daniel Rodriguez, he can fight, I don't know, Colby Covington. Maybe he rematches Joaquin Buckley. He's beat Joaquin Buckley in the past. So, yeah, I'm excited for Kevin Holland. I genuinely think it is Kevin Holland's season. And let's move on to the co-main event. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Someone has to check on Paulo Costa because this dude was genuinely tweaking during the press conference. He genuinely looked like he was on something. And hopefully that doesn't do anything to the fight. Hopefully he doesn't pull out because he's tweaking or anything like that. But it was a very, very weird sight to see. That being said, dude, people got Roman Kopylov as a log, and I think this fight is going to be closer than what people think. I still got Roman Kopylov winning, but Paulo Costa has moments where he's sneaky fast. He snuck that kick to Robert Whittaker super fast, almost dropped him, had him wobbled. But that being said, Paulo Costa has very, very low output, and he has very minimal defense, and I think those are his two biggest flaws. And you could tell when Paulo Costa's frustrated, whether it's with the leg kicks, whether it's with the striking, because he's just going to start emoting on his opponent. And I think we're going to see him start emoting on Roman Kopylov because Roman Kopylov has a significant speed advantage, and he utilizes his kicks well. And the reason why I bring up the kicks is because when you watch Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker, Whittaker is a fighter that utilizes his kicks very well. And he invested in low kicks against Paulo Costa very, very early. And that played dividends into why Robert Whittaker won that fight. Because as the fight went on, Paulo Costa significantly slowed down. You could tell he was feeling it. You could tell he was walking gingerly on it. And even when he was throwing the kicks he was throwing, you can tell he wasn't throwing it with as much sting because his leg was so hurt. It was hard to put pressure on it. And yeah, it just allowed a speedier Robert Whittaker to increase the output more as that foot was destroyed. And Kopylov's key to success here is those leg kicks. He invests in those leg kicks very well. He's very efficient with them. And, yeah, like I said, people got Kopylov knocking out Costa. I don't see that. I don't see people knocking out Costa. I think the only person that's ever knocked him out was Israel Adesanya. And Roman Kopylov is no Israel Adesanya. People are also saying that the old Costa is back. I think they said something that his coach is having him wants him to be on the front foot more, and I just don't buy it. I'm going to be honest. Costa isn't someone that can just turn back the clocks for me. That being said, people got Kopylov as the future of middleweight, and I don't see that either. I think he's very beatable. That being said, I got Roman Kopylov beating Paulo Costa by decision. Watch for those leg kicks, guys. I'm telling you, those leg kicks are going to pay dividends into why Roman Kopylov beats him. And last but not least, the main event. Guys, I'm going to be honest. I'm feeling a sense of dread. Because I don't want any of these guys to lose. I borderline do not want to see this fight because I don't want to see any of these guys lose. It's just going to be too tough. If Max Holloway loses his lightweight run, the momentum screwed up. His last ditch run. I feel like this is really his last good run that he's going to have. And with Dustin Poirier, like, he's going to lose his retirement fight. And this is just sad because once this fight is over, Dustin Poirier is done. And that's kind of weird to say. That's going to be very weird to see. So, yeah, that being said, let's break down this fight. A ton of people are picking Dustin Poirier. And I hate to be that guy, but I think they're picking Dustin Poirier just because they don't want to see him lose his retirement fight. And that's, honestly, that's very fair. And I think people are using the last fight that they fought, Holloway versus Poirier 2, to dictate their pick. A lot of people are saying, listen, Dustin Poirier is 2-0 over Max Holloway. You guys really think Max Holloway will win? And I just think that's a really bad argument to make because let's talk about Poirier versus Holloway too, okay? Listen, Poirier had the clear power advantage. Holloway came with his signature volume and the striking that builds with momentum over time. But Poirier always hit harder, and he was able to build off of that. Like, he was able to build combos off of that because he was backing up Max with that power. On top of this, Max didn't throw a single leg kick. It was only really close-range boxing. And he was engaging with that with Dustin Poirier, and that's what Dustin Poirier does best. Max had very minimal defense, and like even then, like this version of Max, like He's been improving on his defense really, really well recently. Even when he was styling on Calvin Kattar, he was getting tagged by Calvin Kattar. People forget that. People forget that he was eating some big shots from Calvin Kattar, even when he was styling on him. So he never had the best defense. But since that fight, I think Max has significantly improved. His defense has improved. He's been looking more dynamic. He's been mixing in the kicks. He's styled on Justin Gaethje. And out of everyone who has fought Ilia Topuria, he has had the best performance yet. Ilia Topuria is the best boxer in the UFC today. Max Holloway arguably won the second round against Ilia. And I know people remember that fight from the knockout, from Ilia being the first to crack Max's chin. But Max was doing a very good job, especially with the kicks, and especially with working with the body. And that's just very different from when he fought Dustin Poirier the last time. So I think he's significantly improved since that fight. And I think he's improved more than Dustin Poirier. In my opinion, we're looking at a much more improved Max with a retiring Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier is obviously out of his prime. Max Holloway, it almost feels like he's going to hit a second peak with that performance against Gaethje. With having the best performance against Ilia, it feels like he's going to hit the second peak, especially now that he's committed to lightweight. And yeah, look, Dustin Poirier is a great boxer, but I think his defense has declined. We're talking about Max Holloway's defense improving. I think Dustin's defense has declined. Listen, he had his peak when he had the run before Khabib. And he also had another peak when he fought Dan Hooker and he was beating Conor McGregor. But now when you look at him, like, sure, he knocked out Benoit Saint-Denis. But let's talk about that first round. He was getting tagged in that first round. Benoit Saint-Denis was pressuring him and tagging him. Michael Chandler was even tagging him. Like, that being said, Dustin Poirier eventually caught him. But you see these guys overwhelming Dustin Poirier and kind of tagging him more and more. And sure, Dustin Poirier is able to counter those guys, but how well is he going to be able to counter a smarter fighter in Max Holloway? Dustin Poirier was losing exchanges to Islam. And he still has the power in his hands, but we don't know really what Max's chin is like now since he got knocked out by Ilia. But I think his chin is going to hold up, especially because he's moving up to lightweight now. There's going to be more water in his head. His chin is going to be better. And I think he's taking the right steps to improve that chin since getting knocked out, moving up a weight class, taking time off. And listen, this is just an out-of-prime Poirier versus an improved Max Holloway making a lightweight run with a more natural bulk. The bulk he had the second time he fought Poirier wasn't that good of a bulk. It was kind of short notice. His face was pretty fat. It was just weird. But the bulk he had against Justin Gaethje, when he actually properly bulked up for that fight, he looked great. He looked filled out. And I think that's what he's going to look like against Poirier. There's going to be a big-looking Max Holloway. And I think it's going to be the most competitive in the early rounds. But as this fight goes on, I just think Max Holloway is going to win these rounds by wider and wider margins. And I still think this will be competitive. That being said, I think I'm saying a 49-46 unanimous decision for Max Holloway. And it may be a 48-47 for Max, but regardless, I see Max Holloway getting a decision. I don't think he finishes Dustin Poirier. And it's just, yeah, I just think Max Holloway is just so improved that he's going to outpoint Dustin Poirier. I don't think there's going to be a finish. I don't necessarily know if these guys are going to be chasing a finish either, especially Max Holloway. I can't see Max Holloway. That being said, he did finish the Korean Zombie, but I don't know. I just see these guys outpointing each other, and I think Max Holloway is going to get the better upper hand. So, yeah, so I got Max Holloway by decision. And I appreciate you guys if you have been on this video for as long as you have. If you watch this video, comment below if you got Holloway or Poirier winning. This is my first video. We are launching the YouTube. This is the soft launch of the YouTube. And yeah, I'm going to be dropping more like these. If you enjoyed this, make sure to consider following, or subscribing, I should say, commenting, stuff like that, all that jazz. And yeah, these are my picks. I'll be live on TikTok doing a fight companion. I'll break down my reactions and everything like that. But yeah, this is going to be a tough one, bro. I don't want Dustin Poirier to lose, even though I'm picking against him. I don't even want Max Holloway to lose. This is going to be tough. No matter who wins, we're losing. So that's what I'm going to leave it off on. Yet again, on Fight Ben Fight. If you guys enjoyed, I hope you guys enjoyed. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'll see you guys later.